It was an ordinary day in Maplewood, a small town where nothing ever seemed to go wrong. The streets were quiet, and the residents prided themselves on their tight-knit community. Maplewood High School, nestled on the outskirts of town, was the heart of the area, a place where students felt safe and teachers worked diligently to prepare young minds for the future. No one could have anticipated the events that would unfold that day, May 16, 1998, and change the town forever. It started like any other school day. The bell rang at 8 a.m., signaling the start of classes. Students filed into their classrooms, chatting excitedly about summer break just around the corner. Among the students was 17-year-old Lisa Grayson, a bright and determined young woman with a promising future ahead of her. Her mother, Linda Grayson, sent her off that morning, unaware that this would be the last time she would see her daughter. As the school day progressed, everything seemed normal. The students attended their classes, socialized between lessons, and participated in their usual activities. But by 3 p.m., when the bell rang again to dismiss the students, something was terribly wrong. When the parents arrived at the school to pick up their children, they found a campus empty. The classrooms were locked, the halls were silent, and there was no sign of the students. At first, the school administration assumed that the students had left early or were perhaps out at a school event. But as hours turned into days, panic began to set in. Where had they gone? No one had seen them leave the school. No one had heard from them, and no one knew what had happened. Linda Grayson, like the other parents, was in a state of shock. She had always been close to her daughter, and Lisa had never given her any reason to believe that she would run away. Linda couldn't accept that her daughter had just vanished. She began calling all of Lisa's friends, trying to find any clue that might explain where she had gone. None of them had seen or heard from Lisa. As the days turned into weeks, Linda's desperation grew. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and couldn't stop thinking about her daughter. The police conducted an investigation, but with no leads and no suspects, their efforts seemed futile. There were no signs of struggle, no evidence to suggest foul play. The students seemed to have disappeared without a trace. The town of Maplewood, once peaceful and quiet, was now on edge. Rumors began to spread. Some said that the students had been abducted, others whispered that they had run away together, but no one could explain why they hadn't contacted their families. The town was filled with uncertainty, and the residents could feel the weight of the mystery in the air. Linda refused to give up. She knew in her heart that something was wrong. She began investigating on her own, revisiting the school and speaking to anyone who might know something. She spoke with teachers, staff, and even the students who had been closest to Lisa. Every lead, however small, was a potential breakthrough, and Linda followed them relentlessly. One afternoon, while going through Lisa's personal belongings, Linda stumbled upon something that would change everything. She found a small, folded piece of paper tucked inside one of Lisa's old school notebooks. It was a map, a hand-drawn sketch of the school grounds, with an X marking a spot near the woods at the edge of town. Linda didn't recognize the location and had no idea why Lisa had drawn it, but something about it felt significant. Linda decided to investigate. She went to the location marked on the map, which turned out to be a secluded spot near the woods, not far from the school. When she arrived, she found a dilapidated, abandoned building hidden behind the trees. The building had been there for as long as anyone could remember, but no one had ever given it much thought. It was isolated, decaying, and left untouched for years. But something about it now felt eerie and unsettling. Inside, Linda found old files, dusty and yellowed with age. The papers were a mixture of reports, notes, and photographs, but they were all related to the students of Maplewood High, including Lisa. Most of the documents were too faded to read, but one in particular caught Linda's attention. It was a letter, dated just a week before the students had disappeared. The letter, written in a formal tone, mentioned an experimental program that involved students from the school. The letter spoke about enhancing cognitive abilities and testing the limits of the human mind, though it didn't go into much detail. Linda was shocked. She had no idea what this program was or why it involved her daughter, but it was clear that it had something to do with the disappearance of Lisa and her classmates. As she combed through the remaining files, she discovered that the program had been linked to a secretive organization that had been conducting psychological experiments on the students. The more Linda read, the more she felt a deep sense of dread. It seemed as though the students had been part of a larger, hidden experiment that no one in town had ever known about. And now, they were gone. The more Linda investigated, the more she uncovered. She learned that the school's administration had been aware of the program but had kept it a secret from the parents. The project had been funded by an unnamed government agency, and it involved manipulating the students' minds through various methods, including hypnosis and sensory deprivation. The goal was to explore how far they could push the limits of human consciousness. As Linda dug deeper, she found evidence suggesting that something had gone horribly wrong with the experiment. It seemed that the students had somehow been taken to another location, possibly another dimension or parallel reality, and that the project had been abandoned once it became clear that the students were lost. The more Linda learned, the more she felt like she was stepping into a dark and dangerous world, a world of government secrets and unethical experiments. Desperate to find answers, Linda began contacting former students who had been part of the school at the time of the disappearances. Some were reluctant to speak, others had no memory of the events, and some were simply too afraid to talk. But one former student, James, revealed a crucial detail. He mentioned that, just days before the disappearance, there had been a strange assembly at the school. A group of students, including Lisa, had been called into a room by the same temporary teacher who had been there on the day the class vanished. James recalled hearing strange noises coming from the room, and some students had reported feeling disoriented after the meeting. Linda knew she was getting closer to the truth, but as she pieced together the fragments of information, she realized that there was a much darker conspiracy at play. It wasn't just about the missing students, it was about the powerful forces that had used the town and its children as pawns in an experiment that no one was meant to know about. Her relentless pursuit of the truth eventually led her to a stunning revelation. She discovered that the school's principal, along with several other faculty members, had been directly involved in covering up the experiment. They had known about it all along and had done everything in their power to prevent the truth from coming to light. As Linda confronted the people involved, she was faced with their cold indifference. They had no remorse for what had happened, and they were willing to do anything to protect the secrets they had been hiding for so long. But Linda wouldn't give up. She had come too far, and she wasn't going to stop until she knew what had happened to her daughter. In a final, desperate attempt to bring the truth to light, Linda brought all the evidence she had gathered to the media. The story of the missing class and the secret government experiment shocked the world. As the case made headlines, the authorities were forced to reopen the investigation. While the missing students were never found, Linda's efforts to expose the truth brought some measure of justice, even if it wasn't the resolution she had hoped for. In the end, Linda never got to see her daughter again, but she found solace in the fact that, after 27 years, the truth had finally been uncovered. Maplewood was forever changed, and the residents would never forget the mysterious disappearance of an entire class. The case remained unsolved, but Linda's determination had ensured that the town would never be the same.